Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar on playing for the prize, how to run trade promotions. My name is Caroline, I'm a lawyer in LegalVision's dispute resolution and regulatory team. I'm joined today by my colleague Rebecca Wood, who is a practice group leader in the dispute resolution and regulatory team.
Thanks, Caroline. Look, let's get started this morning with an acknowledgement of country. LegalVision acknowledges and pays respect to the past, present and emerging traditional custodians and elders of this nation. In particular, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose land LegalVision's headquarters is situated on, and the various lands on those of you joining us today. Before we begin, we're just going to run through a couple of housekeeping matters. Firstly, you're going to be emailed a copy of the webinar later today. If you've got any questions for Caroline and I, you can submit them into the chat box. And please let us know what you thought of this webinar by completing the survey at the conclusion. So we're going to be talking about a few different topics today. So just to give you a run through, we're going to be giving you an overview of what's considered a trade promotion. We're going to talk about the differences between a game of skill versus a game of chance, talking about the relevant permits that you will need, what is considered genuine goods and services, what to include in your trade promotion terms and conditions, how you can avoid misleading and deceptive conduct, and finally, we're going just to be talking about some other legal considerations that you should think about. Once we've worked through the slides, we're going to have a Q&A session, so put your questions in, and then we're going to be talking about a special offer for our attendees today. Now I'm just going to hand over to Caroline, who's going to get started on talking about the basics of what is a trade promotion.
Thanks, Beck. So trade promotions are a great way to promote your business and encourage customer engagement. They're relatively common forms of advertising for businesses, however they are quite regulated. This is because they're closely aligned with gambling, which is a heavily regulated industry, as you can imagine. Trade promotions are regulated differently in each state and territory, and in some states you'll need a permit to operate a trade promotion. If you are planning on running a trade promotion, you'll need to check the relevant laws for each state. This presentation will cover some of the key things you need to be aware of because trade promotions are akin to a form of gambling and they are heavily regulated. Generally, conducting trade promotions takes place in 4 key stages. That is concept planning, so ensuring that your trade promotion meets the regulatory step framework, creating your terms and conditions that will govern how the trade promotion is conducted. In some states, it's important to be aware that these will be scrutinised by the regulator if you need a permit. Going live, so that is marketing your trade promotion and conducting it in accordance with the terms and conditions, and then your ongoing compliance requirements. So ensuring you meet the record keeping requirements for each state.
Great, thanks Caroline. So look, as Caroline stepped out, trade promotions are a great way to market your business. They've got particular tactics that are aimed at drawing consumers in, such as contests, free gifts or special pricing. And trade promotions can offer benefits to both the business and consumer. For a business, it's a way of building brand awareness. Competitions can be a great way to promote your products or services and create a bit of buzz or drive demand for your services. On the flip side, for customers, they feel like they're getting some value. So the chance of winning a prize can be a really good incentive for customers to purchase a new product or engage with a new business. I find myself quite attracted to these trade promotions because I like the thought that I might win something. So they're pretty popular and we see a lot of them in the market. Another additional benefit is that you can engage with new consumers and then gather some personal information that you can collect that might help feed your other marketing devices, such as direct marketing or other marketing strategies. As we said, trade promotions require a lot of planning, and that's because they're heavily regulated. And a lack of planning is where we find that a lot of our clients get tripped up. Whether it's not ensuring that your trade promotion meets the strict regulatory requirements, you've left things to the last minute, or even worse, perhaps you've launched a trade promotions without actually getting the necessary permits in place. It's really important to make sure that you do it right. The consequences for running a non-compliant trade promotion can be significant. For example, in South Australia, anyone who is considered to be acting dishonestly in connection with the lottery is guilty of a criminal offence, and the maximum penalty that could be imposed could be $50,000 fine or even 2 years imprisonment. And it's important to know that even if the trade promotion's been conducted by a company, the penalty can be applied to directors and CEOs or even the employees responsible for the offence. So it's really important to make sure that the people who are running the trade promotions know what they're doing, they've got the right advice.
Thanks, Beck. So as we've previously noted, trade promotions are regulated state by state. This means that the requirements will differ between the states. This can be problematic for businesses who want to promote to consumers nationally, and in some instances it may be helpful to limit your promotion to a specific state or territory. The applicable law across all states and territories can be synthesised into 4 critical points. That is, a planned trade promotion should meet the following minimum criteria, being that it's for the promotion of genuine goods and services, that it's conducted by a business, that it's free entry to customers, and it generally involves an element of chance. I'm going to go through each of those points in a little bit further detail now. So what does genuine promotion of goods and services mean? In our view, the primary purpose of the promotion should be to encourage the consumer to engage with your business or to purchase your goods and services. It should not be a trade promotion for necessarily charitable or gambling purposes. The promotion will need to be conducted by a business, and this, kind of flows on from that first point, that the main purpose for the promotion is to promote your goods and services or your business. So typically, trade promotions will be run by a business as opposed to a charity or an NFP. And finally, further to that, it needs to be free entry to customers. So some states will have specific requirements around that free entry provision. And this is really to distinguish a trade promotion from other community gaming activities like sort of raffles or gambling. But the key thing being that it predominantly needs to be free entry or, a nominal fee where a text or online entry can apply. Finally, trade promotions will typically involve an element of chance that Rebecca is going to explain in further detail.
Great, thanks Caroline. So yeah, there are 2 types of trade promotions. One is a game of skill and the other is a game of chance. And it's really important to decide what kind of promotion you want to run because they're regulated differently. In essence, there are more rules that apply to a game of chance as opposed to a game of skill. So what's the key difference? Well, a game of skill will involve some form of entry requirement and a judging criteria. I'm sure many of us have seen or an example of a game of skill, perhaps even more when we were kids, when you had to submit an entry to a television show or write an entry that says, tell us in 300 words or less why, this is your favorite hat to wear, or upload your funniest photo using this particular product. So that's a game of skill. A game of chance, on the other hand, is something where there will be a whole lot of entrants and essentially there's a random selection of who is the winner. So it's more like a typical lottery model. Game of chances can include games that have an element of skill, but the final prize winner is still determined by a lottery. For example, there might be first stage of entry where you've got to submit that funny photo to get into the draw to win a competition. And when everyone's in the draw, a random allocation of a winner will be made. In that case, the regulations that apply to a game of chance will regulate that particular trade promotion. So whilst trade promotions that involve a game of chance are highly regulated, a game of skill is only regulated by the Australian consumer law. So all this means is that you have to have a very clear set of transparent terms and conditions to avoid misleading and deceptive conduct. On the other hand, the game of chance, trade promotions are quite heavily regulated by state community gaming legislation, in addition to the general requirements under the ACL to avoid misleading and deceptive conduct. So in short, conducting a game of chance will require permits and a more specific set of terms and conditions in order to comply with the relevant state regulatory frameworks. Now, Caroline's just going to talk a little bit more about when a permit may be required.
Thanks, Beck. So permit applications are only required in some states. Whether you need a permit application or not is going to depend on what the total value or prize pool value for the promotion is. That is the value of the each individual prize in the promotion as a total. Where your trade promotion is conducted, so which state or territory, and this means that you need to consider if you're going to limit applicants or entrants to a specific state, or whether you want to run the promotion nationally and generate sales, across the country. The minimum prize pool value thresholds are $3,000 in the ACT, $5,000 in South Australia and the Northern Territory, and $10,000 in New South Wales. So if your total prize pool value is above any of those amounts, you'll need a permit in the relevant states. These are general thresholds, but there are also state-specific quirks. So, for example, in New South Wales, as opposed to a permit, you obtain an authority. This means that you can run a trade promotion or different trade promotions for set periods of time. So you can apply for a 1, 3, or 5 year authority. And then all you need to do is notify the New South Wales regulator 10 days in advance and submit your terms and conditions each time you want to run a trade promotion. Whereas in the ACT or South Australia, for example, you'll need to apply for a new permit with each promotion. In the Northern Territory, you won't need a permit if you've obtained a permit in one of the other states. So it's sort of a mirror provision. And in WA, a permit is automatically granted under the legislation. However, if you do look at live streaming or televising the draw for the lottery, you'll need to notify the gaming regulator in advance and provide a copy of your terms and conditions. The fees for permits and authorities vary, but will ultimately depend on the length of authority for New South Wales and the total prize pool value for those other states. Once you finalise your terms and conditions, you can then lodge your permit applications, and the application process itself is relatively straightforward if you've got the terms right. The key takeaway being that generally you will only need a permit to operate a national trade promotion from New South Wales, South Australia and the ACT.
Great, thanks, Caroline. So look, I'm just going to have a little discussion about what is considered genuine goods and services. And we're going to talk about this because we're noticing that in the market, there's companies and businesses are increasingly trying to push the boundaries in terms of community gaming legislation. As we set out earlier, one of the key elements is that a trade promotion must be promoting genuine goods and services. Now, the legislation doesn't actually provide a definition of what's considered a good or a service. And so we would assume that we would give the ordinarily daily meaning to these terms. So in our view, a good is a tangible product. For example, a t-shirt, a coffee mug, something that you can actually physically own. Whereas services might be something a bit more intangible. For example, some repair works to your car, a haircut, accountancy services. So something that you are receiving in exchange for money. We're seeing the rise of a lot of businesses that are presenting as being an exclusive membership service or online communities, and these businesses are running regular and ongoing lotteries, which they have crafted as trade promotions. We're seeing these membership style businesses offer promotions to clients who sign up for ongoing memberships. And the memberships offer them discounts or promotions with other third-party businesses. Strictly speaking, these particular business models don't fit into the traditional concept of what a trade promotion is. However, we've dealt with businesses like this, and they can certainly fit into the regulatory framework in order to be compliant. A membership can be a good or services where there's some obvious intrinsic value attached to the membership. So, for example, a gym membership is pretty clear, and that there's an exchange for fees for access to a gym or training services. However, we're seeing, as I'd mentioned before, some businesses that are offering a membership in exchange for discounts for partner businesses. This doesn't fit neatly within the regulatory framework because it's really difficult to assess a market value of the benefits of those discounts. However, we would suggest that perhaps discounts in isolation may not be sufficient to be considered a good or services. And it might be relevant for businesses to think about how they can pad out their offerings, for example, by offering merchandise or different products that are clearly available for sale to fit more neatly within the regulatory framework. So before launching a membership style business, it's important to ensure that your business model will fit within the regulatory framework. So in terms of terms and conditions, Caroline's going to speak specifically more about that.
Thanks, Beck. So as we've mentioned, terms and conditions are necessary to set out all the rights and obligations of the business running the promotion and also the obligations of entrants. The key provisions will include or to consider before you launch your trade promotion are firstly, who is running the trade promotion? Are there any other benefiting parties? So entrants need to be clear who they're contracting with. In some states, there are also extra requirements where the promotion is run on behalf of another business or is looking at donating a percentage of the proceeds to charity. You'll need to consider when the promotion is running specifically, when entries will be open, when they'll close, when the draw date will occur, potentially any lead time between the closure date and the draw date that you need to process the different entries. You'll also need to consider who is eligible for entry. Will the promotion be limited to specific states? What the entry requirements are, what an entrant needs to do to be eligible. These limitations you want to put on entrants need to be detailed in the terms and conditions. And also you'll need to detail what a customer needs to do to make sure they enter the promotion correctly and meet all the requirements. You'll also need to outline how a winner will be drawn. The terms and conditions will need to state when, where, and how the winner will be chosen. That is, whether you'll be using an electronic random number generator or whether you'll be using a more traditional method like a barrel draw. This really needs to be set out in the T's and C's. We'd also note that for New South Wales and South Australia, there are specific witnessing requirements. So in some cases, you may need to get an independent scrutineer or external third party to witness the draw. And that applies whether it's an electronic random prize draw or also the physical lottery or barrel draw. As part of the terms and conditions, you'll also need to set out where the winner will be published and how they'll be notified. Various state regulations require promoters to take all reasonable steps to contact the winners. An easy way to show this or what you're going to do or what steps you'll take to contact those winners is obviously to include it in the terms and conditions. We usually suggest putting in a time frame of 2 business days to reach out to winners. Further to that, some states also require that the winners be published online or in a publication as advertised for up to a month to make sure that winners are appropriately contacted. Other key terms and conditions that you need to include may be, a limitation of liability clause and a privacy policy to set out how you're using entrants' personal data. These are a few of the details that we need to consider before preparing a set of terms and conditions to make sure that your trade promotion is compliant. And it is important to get the drafting done properly and correctly in the first instance, because the regulators will be reviewing the terms and conditions as part of the permit process. And if you're missing a detail or it's not done correctly the first time, this could delay the time it takes for your application to be assessed, and in some instances may prevent you from receiving that permit.
Great. So trade promotions must comply with the overarching prohibitions against misleading and deceptive conduct found in the Australian consumer law. So to avoid misleading and deceptive conduct, the best thing that you can do is ensure that your marketing and advertising material is in alignment with your terms and conditions. There are some specific obligations that are imposed by regulators in relation to your advertising, and one of those matters is that the marketing material should not promote gambling or suggest that entering the promotion can improve your financial position. Advertising material should show where the terms and conditions associated with the trade promotion can be accessed. You will also need to ensure that your marketing material includes the critical information that's stipulated by the various state regulators. At a minimum, your marketing material should include the dates of the promotion and the draw, how to enter, what are any eligibility requirements, a description and a value of the prize, as well as any onerous terms. An easy way to cover yourself in this respect is to make sure that your marketing materials include a short form of your terms and conditions. These can be included in any marketing blast or social media posts. And these will typically be a few sentences with the key information regarding the promotion.
Thanks, Beck. So now we're going to briefly discuss record keeping requirements. Similarly, I guess, to the other regulations that apply to trade promotions, the record keeping requirements change from state to state, and the different states have different auditing powers, so they can review these once you've finalised your trade promotion. It is important you maintain your records so that if you are audited, you can respond appropriately and avoid any sort of potential penalties. Generally speaking, you'll need to keep your promotion records for up to 5 years or 7 years in some states if the total prize pool is over $20,000. As a matter of best practice, we recommend that you keep the following documents on file. So that is a final copy of the terms and conditions, any permit documentation you receive, a copy of entry forms from your entrants, the winner's details, specifically their name and contact information, the prize details, so that's receipts showing the total or the prize value of each specific prize, evidence that the prizes were awarded or distributed, that is sort of given to the winners, and where the prize was unclaimed, how it was disposed of, or who it was awarded to later. We also suggest keeping a copy of your advertising material and any accounting information relating to the promotion. Rebecca's now going to discuss collection of information.
Thanks. Look, as we discussed, one of the benefits of a trade promotion is that you can engage with new consumers and customers, and a trade promotion may entice them to make a purchase and engage with your business. So once they've engaged, you may be collecting their personal information. So as a matter of best practice, your terms and conditions should make it very clear what information entrants are required to submit in order to enter into the trade promotion, and make it clear that the entrance gives permission for the data to be used for other marketing purposes. It's important to note that Victoria has some specific requirements on this post, which set out that your trade promotions must include, as a minimum, that a notification about if their personal information will be used for other purposes, and consent. So this is something that companies should always be aware of, and as a general matter, businesses should always be aware of their requirements in terms of advertising to consumers under the Spam Act and the Privacy Act. The Spam Act regulates the marketing of electronic communications sent by Australian businesses, and it prohibits the sending of electronic messages unless the following conditions apply. The sender has consent from the recipient to such commercial messages. So that consent would be made clear in the terms and conditions that they are consenting to receiving marketing material as part of entering the trade promotion. The second key requirement under the Spam Act is that the sender is identified in the message, and there needs to be a functional unsubscribe facility included in the message. Now, we've got a very handy document that summarises your legal obligations that you'll be able to download as part of this webinar. As I said earlier, it's important that you ensure that any personal information that you collect during the process of conducting a trade promotion is used strictly in accordance with the Privacy Act. That is, if your terms and conditions give express consent for your business to use their personal information for other purposes, including marketing. Every business should have a privacy policy that ensures compliance and lets your customers know how you're going to treat personal information. It's also important to note that the Privacy Act also regulates direct marketing, so it's really important to understand your key obligations. So now we've talked about how to run the trade promotion, what your ongoing obligations are. Caroline's now going to talk about how to close the trade promotion.
Thanks, Beck. So businesses often find themselves with leftover prizes at the end of these trade promotions, and that is, where a winner potentially failed to claim their prize or forgot about it, or in some instances they may even be uncontactable. Once you've taken all reasonable steps to contact that winner, our general recommendation is that you wait a period of 3 months before conducting a redraw or a second chance or unclaimed prize draw, as it's sometimes referred to. And this is a great way to redistribute those prizes that are included in the competition. Again, this also needs to be reflected in your terms and conditions, and the regulators need to be aware that this is how the prize will be distributed if you're not able to contact those first winners. It's important to note that even when the trade promotion and all the prizes are distributed, you will have ongoing regulatory obligations that we've already briefly touched on, but specifically making sure that you are keeping records of the promotions and using your customers' information or entrants' information in accordance with the Privacy and Spam Act. So now Beck and I will be discussing a sort of summary of the key considerations you need to consider before launching a trade promotion.
Great, and look, these are some key considerations that we've certainly had experience in dealing with our clients on, and some of the things that maybe they've come to us and not really thought things through. So firstly, before you launch into a trade promotion, consider, well, what are the goods and services that you're promoting? So as I discussed, you need to ensure that the trade promotion is in fact promoting the sale of a particular good or services. There's a grey area in respect of membership style businesses, but it's very important to make sure that you'd be avoiding a regulator considering that your trade promotion is actually a very thinly veiled lottery. The next thing that you really need to consider is how are your patrons going to enter the trade promotion? So what's your entry procedure? Now this is really important because you need to ensure that entry into a trade promotion is is understood by your consumers and that they are having regard to the terms and conditions in entry. So for example, having a separate portal where people actually have to enter a trade promotion, acknowledge terms and conditions is key here. Is the competition a game of skill or a game of chance? Again, this comes back to whether or not you might need permits and how the trade promotion will be regulated. Think about how and where you're going to be conducting the trade promotion. Are you going to be doing something that's local and state-based? But if you're a business that operates nationally, you may require a number of permits in order to run your trade promotion. Think about where you're advertising the promotion and how your advertising links back to the terms and conditions and avoids misleading and deceptive conduct. If you're launching the advertising of your trade promotion on social media, think about the particular rules that different platforms have that govern advertising and how your trade promotion and advertising of that trade promotion may fit within the different rules that are imposed by social media companies. What's the date of the draw? Look, this seems like a very simple question, but a lot of clients will come to us and say that they want to launch trade promotion in a few days, but they haven't actually gone through the proper planning process. Our experience is to have a few months lead time at least to make sure that your trade promotion is compliant with the regulatory framework. This is because the risks of not conducting a trade promotion in accordance with the key regulatory frameworks can have some serious consequences for your business. Also, just as a matter of practicality, it takes some time to make sure that your terms and conditions are compliant, but also getting permits. In our experience dealing with New South Wales and the ACT, permits can turn around pretty quickly, but with South Australia, for some reason, I don't know if it's just they're really busy in South Australia, but they just can take a little bit longer. So we really recommend about a month's lead time at the most, as a minimum before launching into a trade promotion to make sure that you've got all the permits in place that you need.
Thanks, Beck. So you might find this publication useful. It's our spam consent fact sheet. This is going to be really valuable if you're looking at sending marketing emails and making sure you're complying with the Spam Act and Privacy Act. You can download the fact sheet with the link in the slides here. We also have an upcoming webinar next week on Web3 Essentials, Understanding SAFT Agreements. This is next Tuesday and you can register via the link in the slides. And now we have time for some questions. Hopefully you've submitted them online throughout the presentation.
Great. Well, look, just looking through some of the questions, Caroline, you might be able to address this one. So the question is, please cover the difference, if any, between running a giveaway on social media versus a giveaway at an event, such as a trade show, family fun day, or community day.
Yeah, so I mean, they're substantially the same. The way you need to approach it is, if it's online or if it's via social media, or if it is that, physical trade show, you'll need terms and conditions either way, and it should clearly set out how the promotion is going to operate. So that means, if the draw is at a fairground, you'll need to state the location where the draw is going to take place and how the draw is going to take place. So if it's a physical barrel draw, that should be included. Or again, if it's an online number generator, if you're operating it on social media, that needs to be noted there as well. So primarily it'll affect how we draft your terms and conditions, really.
Yeah, but for both of them, you still need to be ensuring that essentially what you're advertising and what you're giving away is quite clear, making sure that the people who are engaging with the trade promotion, whether it's via social media or in person, are still seeing your terms and conditions. And that's to protect you from any claims that perhaps the promotion was conducted in a misleading and deceptive way. So another question that has been submitted, but I think we might have covered, is registration for a game of chance still required? So yes, so if your promotion is a game of chance and it meets the thresholds in terms of prize value, and in terms of where you're going to be conducting the promotion, you will require to register it in terms that you will require to get a permit. Or in the case of New South Wales, you may have an authority in place or need an authority, but you'll still need to run the terms and conditions for the particular promotion by the regulators. The next question is, was more a comment, keen to understand this in the context of Instagram. Well, look, I'm sure many of us, I know that I'm a keen Instagram user. Most people are these days. And generally speaking, you know, when you are conducting a trade promotion via social media, it still needs to comply with the regulatory framework that we've just discussed. Now, social media providers will regulate the use of advertising and promotional campaigns via their platform with very specific terms of use. So you need to have regard to the specific terms that have been imposed by Instagram or, for example, Facebook. So, and Twitter, for example, and each of these platforms may have different terms and conditions that you need to comply with. So at the point of putting your terms and conditions together, you know, we always recommend getting some legal advice. Your lawyer should also be reviewing the contracts and terms and conditions that govern your particular social media account and the provider to make sure that those terms are compliant. Caroline, I'm going to throw this one over to you. Do entrants need to knowingly enter a competition? For example, everyone who purchased X in August will go into a draw.
We'd strongly recommend it. Our view is that they should be acknowledging, or any entrant should be acknowledging, that they are accepting the terms and conditions for your promotion. So that might mean that, you know, in the context of, you can obviously offer the promotion to everyone who purchases that particular product, but they should be acknowledging those terms and conditions, and they should have the option, you know, not to enter and not to share their personal information if they don't want to. What do you think, Beth?
Absolutely, 100%. I agree. And I mean, we see a bit of that with some business who are trying to set up those membership style of businesses. So you become a member, you get discounts, and then you know, there's I guess an intention to just consistently go into these trade promotions. Always really important that you have terms and conditions associated with every trade promotion, and that for the reasons that you've just said, that every entrant is given the opportunity to opt in or opt out. Okay, another question I'll throw over to you, Caroline, because I feel like I've been talking a lot. Question regarding free entry requirements. What about when a condition of entry into the a condition of entry into the draw is to purchase a product?
Yeah, so there aren't any issues with that. Strictly speaking, I suppose the underlying principle of this rule when it comes to free entry is that, you know, the purpose of the promotion is to promote genuine goods and services. So if a condition of entry is to purchase your service or purchase a specific product, that's fine, as long as it's not, you know, it needs to be clear that the customer isn't purchasing an entry, but they're purchasing your goods and services. And one of the additional benefits of, you know, working with you in that regard is that they will also go into the draw to win this prize as part of the promotion.
Yeah, totally agree. So for example, if you've got to purchase a t-shirt to enter into a trade promotion, you can't, another thing to keep in mind, you can't inflate the price of the t-shirt. The cost of entry, if it's a purchase of a product, needs to be the market value of that product. There can't be a built-in cost to entering into the trade promotion, because at that stage, you're really operating an illegal lottery. If a raffle includes a guessing competition on the raffle ticket, is it considered a game of chance? And is the position different across all states? I think because it involves, I don't think a guessing competition would necessarily be a game of chance. I think it might be a borderline game of skill. What do you think, Caroline?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the context. I suppose, one of the traditional models we might see is, where people have this sort of jars filled with hundreds of lollies and you're guessing a number or, how many gumballs do you think is in the jar? In that regard, it would be a game of skill if all they have to do is correctly guess the number. However, if it's, whoever gets closest or the top 5 entrants who get closest will then go into the draw and there's that element of chance, that's where it's likely to be, regulated by the trade promotion legislation or the community gaming legislation in the different states. Whereas if it's only a game of skill, you just need to be considering, the Australian consumer law requirements. Do you have anything to add to that, Rebecca?
No, I agree with that. Look, I think we've run out of time for questions, but look, thank you for all the questions that have been submitted and for your participation so far. Look, Caroline, I might just throw back to you to talk about our Pro membership and our special offer for today.
Yeah, so you may or may not be aware, LegalVision, one of our main offerings is the membership. This is really a good product if your business has legal needs, and most do, as you can imagine. The service includes unlimited document drafting and review, unlimited legal advice consultations across a wide range of areas from, intellectual property, employment, disputes assistance and regulatory advice. So this will have a huge impact for your business. You can request a complimentary consultation today to discuss how LegalVision can help you organise your next trade promotion. To go through some of the questions we might not have gotten to. To book, all you need to do is leave your contact details in the survey at the end of the webinar, or you can email reply@legalvision.com.au and mention today's webinar. Cool. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone.
Yes, thank you. And don't forget to fill out your survey to let us know what you thought. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.